Steve Darrow has a question that was highly ranked. He said, what type of new content do you have planned specifically targeted to the Utes that will begin to reverse the progressive indoctrination that downplays the importance of founding principles when most people don't even know what these founding principles are? Superb question, Steve. And I've virtually all of the live speeches I do cover this whole messaging thing. The way that you get young people, and this is the horrible blunder that we make all the time. I'll just tell you what I've said in a bunch of speeches, and I'm just going to assume you haven't heard this before. I'll go and speak to a group of Tea Party people or Republican Women's Club of somebody or else or whatever. And I will say to them, listen, I think we're making a dreadful mistake, and I know why we're making it, and I understand why we're making it, but we can't keep making it. What's the mistake? The mistake is that Republicans dress everything in red, white, and blue bunting, and they have the Constitution silkscreened onto panels, and everything is parchment and quills. And we have the Gadsden flag, and we have pictures of guys in ruffled shirts with waistcoats and tri-corner hats. And when you say this, people just want to go, what's the matter with you? It's like, nothing's the matter with me, guys. I'm a day walker, right? I'm a vampire that slays other vampires. I live in their world, and I see what they're good at. And our mistake is we are so enamored with the past. We're so enamored with the foundational principles of the country. They get eroded every day. That's why we are conservatives. We're trying to conserve this most beautiful thing ever created, this freedom. We're trying to conserve it. And so naturally we look backwards because we can measure how much we've lost. We can measure where we're going by how much we've lost. So naturally we look back towards the Founding Fathers as a time of real purity and a time of genuine on-earth ideal type of government, about as ideal as it can possibly be. And that is a big mistake. Because if you go to young people who, not that they don't know about this stuff, they have specifically been excluded from knowing about this stuff. They have not learned anything about American history. They know nothing about civics. They know nothing about how the government works. And now they're not even being taught cursive handwriting, which I thought was an odd thing to kind of insist on. And then it just suddenly occurred to me, and it's probably occurred to 50 million other Americans too. If they don't teach kids cursive, if they can't read cursive handwriting, presumably because we're all using devices from now on, if kids can't read cursive handwriting, then they can't read the Constitution. They can't read the Declaration, and they can't read the Bill of Rights. Just think about that. It's over time. It's almost like teaching the American people a new language, and the old language that all of this freedom was written in is just like Latin. It just dies away, or Esperanto. So when we talk about the Utes, Steve, we have to. I can express this fairly concisely for a change. Our messages need to look like Apple ads. We the people should be in black Helvetica on a white background down low in a corner. And we have to convince young people that the future is in front of them, well, of course the future is in front of them, that the values that we hold are not 250 years old, appropriate to men with bad teeth, 60 years old and wearing powdered wigs, but rather that all of these principles are in fact ahead of us, and we need to work towards them. It's so hard for us because we love the bunting, and we love the George Washington stuff. We love the flags and the eagles and all that other stuff, but I think it's absolutely a mistake. And every time I see a conservative flyer or mailing for like a Republican politician or something, so many times I see it's all red, white, and blue, and stars and waving flags and eagles and a type font that's kind of like an old text, and it's gold on dark red, and it's absolutely unreadable, and it looks like it's done by old amateurs. I think these ideas deserve better than that. I think these principles deserve to be updated in terms of how they're delivered. I think they need to be immutable in terms of what they say. I wouldn't change a comma, not one. But I would present it in such a way that it was appealing to read for modern viewers. I put it in black Helvetica against white, and I would make it clean and cool and simple. And I think that's one of the many mistakes we make, and I could go into more of them, but I will say one more thing, Steve, and that is this. You can lecture young people all you want to about free markets and all the rest of it stuff, and you can complain about them being socialists, and you can talk about how you tell young millennials about socialism, and they just don't care. They roll their eyes. Well, of course we should be socialists. Why not? Capitalism has made so much wealth for them that they don't know what they're doing. They just don't have a clue. So it sounds like it's friendly, and all the other kids are saying it, so let's all be socialists. And you can go at that and try and, and go at it with an axe. But the way I think is the most effective way to do it is this. You have to make them see that the actions, not the actions that you want them to take, but the actions that they've taken their entire lives are conservative actions. The thing I use all the time, I'm just beating it to death, and I'll keep flogging it to death. The idea that these kids call themselves socialists and they have cell phones, and they will not take their cell phones and sell them and distribute the money to poor people, from each according to their ability to each according to his need. Whenever I go and speak in public and I say they're all about wealth redistribution so long as it's somebody else's wealth being redistributed to them, but when it's their wealth being redistributed to somebody else, then all of a sudden they're William F. Buckley. Gets a huge cheer because it's exactly right. It's exactly true. And you can point out to people who have, people who are complaining about how this guy's this rich fat cat 1%er has 7 houses. That's disgusting. It's disgraceful. How can you live in a world where people have 7 houses and other people are starving in the streets? First of all, nobody's starving in the streets of America. There are some mentally ill people in the streets of America, and there's some people who have real employment problems on the streets of America, but nobody's starving on the streets of America. But basically, they'll say, how can you justify a system where somebody has 7 houses and other people don't have any? And I'll simply say to this guy, hey, dude, do me a favor, get out your iPhone and tell me how many songs you have. Why do you want to know? I'm just curious. Just tell me how many songs you got on your iPhone. I don't know, 750? 750 songs, really? They cost about $1 each, round numbers to download, right? That's $750. Do you need 750 songs? Couldn't you do you ever listen to them all at the same time? A lot of people out there don't have any music at all. In fact, a lot of people out there aren't even eating because, they don't have roofs over their head. The $750 that you spent on music, you could have just gotten 50 songs and put $700 into people's lives and fixed their homelessness. Why didn't you do it? What kind of a disgusting moral creature has 750 songs? I'll bet you there are songs on your iPhone that you haven't listened to in years. And I bet you keep buying new ones all the time with money that you could be spending on social programs. And then they realize, okay. And if they don't realize it, I'll realize it for them. I'll say, you are making the exact same decisions as a person who has 7 houses is making. You're just making it on a smaller scale. You're spending your money on what you want for yourself. And the big close to this is, and I don't want to live in a world where some Republican jerk who you've never met in your life can come forward and tell you how many songs you should have on your iPhone. It's none of my business what you do with your money. And the idea that they're evil and you're not doesn't wash. You could have donated that $700. You could have donated $50 or whatever. You haven't done it. You spend it on yourself. You spend it on video games. Your Xbox is a toy that could feed an entire family in Africa for a year for the price of that toy, and you will not sell that toy and send that money to Africa because you want it for yourself. And so does the guy who has 7 houses. And that guy worked his tail off. Your money comes from your dad who worked his tail off. You haven't done anything. And then they're trapped, and then they realize that everything they've done is hypocritical compared to what they think their principles are, and they don't know what their principles are because they've been told what their principles are by a bunch of absolutely pathetic failures in college who simply cannot accomplish anything, and so they're going to take it out on the rest of the world.